I never thought helping Dean's dad Joel fix the fence would lead to this. But the decision I made that afternoon to finally open up to Dean changed everything, and there was no way I could go back to the way things were before. It was a warm Saturday in our quiet suburban neighborhood just outside Chicago, Illinois. The sun hung high, painting the green lawns and neat houses in golden light. Dean had called me the night before, his voice casual over the phone, but with that familiar edge of urgency. "Hey Alex, my dad's out there trying to fix the old backyard fence by himself after the storm last week. The posts are rotting and he won't admit he needs help. Can you swing by? I'm stuck at the office until late, but I'll owe you big time." I didn't hesitate. Dean had been my best friend since freshman year of high school, and his family had always welcomed me like a second son. When I pulled up to their two-story brick house, the backyard gate was already open. Joel was out there alone, tools scattered across the grass. At 58, he still looked strong, broad shoulders and calloused hands from years in construction, but the years showed in the silver threading his dark hair. "Alex, good to see you, kid," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead with a faded bandana. "Dean said you might come. Appreciate it more than you know. This fence has been driving me crazy." We got straight to work. I held the new post steady while Joel drove in the nails, the sharp ring of the hammer echoing across the yard. The sun warmed my back, and the smell of fresh-cut wood mixed with the faint scent of Joel's coffee. As we worked, he talked easily about the old days building houses, how Dean used to run around the job sites as a boy getting underfoot. I laughed and shared bits of my own life, the marketing job in the city that paid the bills but left me staring at the ceiling at night, wondering if this was all there was. Joel listened, nodding thoughtfully. "Life's short, Alex. Don't waste it on what other people expect." His words landed heavier than he probably meant. By the time we finished the main section, the sun had dipped lower, casting long, dramatic shadows across the repaired fence. Joel clapped me on the shoulder, his grip firm. "You're a good man, Alex. Dean's lucky to have a friend like you." He headed inside to wash up, leaving me alone with the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. That's when Dean's car rolled into the driveway. He stepped out, still in his button-down from work, dark hair slightly messy, and those blue eyes lighting up when he saw me. Dean had always been the golden boy, tall, athletic, with a smile that made everyone feel seen. We'd shared everything, late-night talks about dreams, stupid inside jokes, and the kind of loyalty that survives anything. Or so I thought. Lately, every time he looked at me, something inside me twisted, a feeling I had buried for years now clawing its way to the surface. After Joel disappeared into the house, I pulled Dean aside right there by the new fence line. My heart hammered against my ribs, but the decision was already made. I couldn't keep pretending. "Dean, I need to talk to you. About us." My voice came out steadier than I felt. He tilted his head, curious. I took a breath. "I've been feeling this way for a long time. I think I'm in love with you." The words hung between us, heavier than the hammer blows from earlier. Dean stared at me, the afternoon light catching the surprise in his eyes. For a second, I thought I had ruined everything. Then he stepped closer, voice low. "Alex, I've been scared to say it, but yeah, me too." Dean's admission hit me like the first real breath after years underwater. We stood there by the fence, the repaired wood still smelling fresh, while the late afternoon sun painted everything in warm gold. He reached out his hand, brushing mine, and the touch sent electricity through me. "I didn't know how to tell you," he whispered, glancing toward the house where Joel was probably making coffee. "Every time we hung out, I felt it, but I kept telling myself it was just friendship. Strong friendship." We talked for hours that evening, sitting on the back porch steps, voices low so Joel wouldn't overhear. Dean told me how he had started questioning things in college after a drunken kiss with a guy at a party that left him confused and terrified. He had dated girls since then, trying to fit the mold his dad expected, the successful son with a wife and kids someday. But none of it felt right. "You were always there, Alex," he said, eyes locked on mine. "The one person who made sense." That night we didn't kiss, not yet. We just sat close, shoulders touching, talking until the stars came out. When I finally drove home, my mind spun with possibilities and fears. What if Joel found out? What if our friends reacted badly? What if this ruined the friendship that had been my anchor for years? But beneath the worry, a quiet excitement bloomed. For the first time, I felt seen completely. The next few weeks blurred into stolen moments. We met in the city after work, grabbing coffee in hidden cafes or walking along the lakefront where the breeze off Lake Michigan cooled our flushed faces. Dean's laugh sounded different now, lighter, freer. One evening in my apartment, we finally crossed that line. It wasn't dramatic, just a soft kiss that started tentative and grew into something that felt like coming home. His hands on my face, his heartbeat against mine. "I've wanted this for so long," he murmured afterward. We kept it secret at first. Dean wasn't ready to tell his dad, and I understood. Joel had raised him alone after losing his wife to cancer when Dean was 12. He was traditional, hardworking, a man who still went to church every Sunday and talked about settling down with a nice girl. We didn't want to hurt him, so we built our world in the shadows, late-night texts, secret weekends away. One weekend we drove up to Wisconsin, renting a small cabin by the lake. No one knew where we were. We spent the days hiking, talking about everything from childhood memories to future dreams. Dean opened up about the pressure he felt to be the perfect son, the fear that loving me would disappoint Joel. I shared my own struggles with my family back in Ohio, who still asked when I would bring a girlfriend home. Lying to them hurt, but lying to myself had hurt more. By the time we returned to Chicago, something had shifted inside both of us. The relationship wasn't just new and exciting anymore. It was real. We started talking about coming out slowly, maybe to close friends first. Dean's confidence grew, and so did mine. But life has a way of testing you just when you think you've found solid ground. One Tuesday afternoon, Dean called me sounding shaken. Joel asked if I was seeing anyone. I froze. Alex. I almost told him, but the words wouldn't come. I drove over that evening and we sat in his car in the driveway talking it through. The fence we had fixed stood straight and strong, a silent witness to how everything had started. Little did we know the real repairs, the ones inside us, were only beginning. The secret felt heavier with every passing day. Dean and I fell into a rhythm that was both beautiful and exhausting. Mornings I would wake to his good morning text and smile like an idiot at my phone. Evenings we found excuses to see each other, sometimes just sitting in my living room watching movies with our hands intertwined. But the hiding started to wear on us. Dean grew quiet at family dinners, Joel's questions about his dating life hanging in the air like smoke. I found myself avoiding my own parents' calls because the lies tasted bitter now. One Friday night we met at a small Italian restaurant downtown, the kind with dim lighting and private booths. Dean looked tired but happy. Over pasta he reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I've been thinking about telling Joel. Not everything, just that I'm seeing someone special." His eyes searched mine for reassurance. I nodded, even though fear coiled in my stomach. "Whenever you're ready. I'm with you." That weekend Dean invited me over for a casual barbecue. Joel was grilling burgers, the smell of charcoal filling the backyard. The fence we had repaired stood proudly now, and Joel kept pointing it out proudly. "Best work I've done in years, thanks to Alex here." He clapped me on the back again, and for a moment I felt like part of the family. Dean watched us from the picnic table, his expression soft. Later, when Joel went inside for more drinks, Dean pulled me aside. "Seeing you with him like this makes me want to tell him even more." But the internal battles raged on. Dean started having nightmares about losing his dad's respect. I struggled with my own identity crisis, wondering if loving another man made me less of the person I had always thought I was. We talked through it late into the night, sometimes arguing, sometimes crying, but always ending closer. One argument stands out. Dean had canceled a planned weekend trip because Joel needed help with the house. I felt hurt, accused him of putting his dad first. "This is exactly why I'm scared, Alex," he snapped. "I don't want to choose." The words stung, but they forced us to face the truth. Love wasn't simple. It demanded choices every single day. We made up the next morning with a long walk along the river. Dean apologized, and I admitted my jealousy came from fear. That conversation marked a turning point. We decided to tell one close friend first, Sarah from college. Her reaction was pure joy. "I knew it!" she squealed, hugging us both. Her support gave us courage. Slowly the secret felt less like a cage and more like a bridge we were building together. Yet the world outside kept pressing in. At work, a coworker made a casual joke about real men, and Dean came home quiet that night. I held him while he processed the comment. "I hate that I still care what people think," he whispered. I understood. The same doubts haunted me. But every time I looked at him, every time he smiled at me, the doubts faded a little more. We were growing not just as a couple but as men learning to stand in our truth. The fence job that started everything now felt symbolic. We had fixed something broken outside, and now we were fixing ourselves inside. The journey was far from over, but for the first time I believed we could make it. The cracks appeared slowly at first. Joel started noticing the extra time Dean spent away from home, the late nights, and the way his son seemed distracted. One evening after dinner, Joel pulled Dean aside in the kitchen. I was in the living room pretending to watch a game, but I heard every word. You've been different lately, son. Everything okay at work? Dean's voice was tight when he answered. Yeah, Dad, just busy. Joel didn't push, but the doubt lingered in his eyes. Dean and I argued about it later in my apartment. He suspects something, Alex. I can feel it. I tried to reassure him, but fear had taken root. We decided to slow down, be more careful. That meant fewer public dates, more time apart. The distance hurt more than I expected. One weekend, I drove to my parents' house in Ohio to clear my head. My mom asked the usual questions about dating, and for the first time I almost told her. The words died on my tongue. Back in Chicago, the misunderstanding hit like a storm. Sarah, our one confidant, accidentally mentioned us to another mutual friend, Mike. Mike wasn't cruel, but he was careless. Word spread quietly at first, then louder. A week later, Dean showed up at my door, eyes red. Mike asked me straight up if we were together. I denied it, but he didn't believe me. The betrayal stung, even though Mike hadn't meant harm. We spent the night talking through it, deciding we couldn't control other people's reactions, only our own. Work became another battlefield. My boss, an older conservative guy, started making comments about lifestyle choices after hearing office gossip. I kept my head down, but the stress built. Dean faced similar whispers at his firm. One night, he broke down in my arms. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, Alex. Maybe we should slow down. His words sliced through me. I held him tighter, refusing to let fear win. We've come too far to hide forever. But I'll wait until you're ready. The pressure peaked when Joel invited me over for a Sunday dinner. The table was set with Dean's favorite roast. Halfway through the meal, Joel looked at us both. You two have been thick as thieves since you were kids. Anything you want to tell me? The room went silent. Dean froze. I felt my heart in my throat. In that moment, I realized how much was at stake: family, acceptance, careers, friendships. Dean changed the subject, but the question hung over us like a cloud. Later that night, alone, Dean and I sat on the porch steps again, the repaired fence glowing under the porch light. I almost told him today, he said, voice breaking. But the fear stopped me. I took his hand. When you're ready, I'll be right beside you. The external world kept pushing, but our bond grew stronger in the resistance. We were learning that love wasn't just joy, it was endurance. The misunderstandings and pressures tested us, but they also revealed how deeply we cared. The decision I had made by that fence months ago now felt like the best and hardest choice of my life. The crisis came without warning. Mike, the friend who had guessed our secret, got drunk at a party and let it slip to Joel's neighbor, an old church friend. By Monday morning, Joel knew. Dean called me shaking. Dad found out. He's furious. He wants to talk to both of us tonight. I drove over, heart pounding. Joel met us in the living room, face tight with disappointment. Is this true? You too? His voice cracked on the last word. Dean nodded, tears in his eyes. Yes, Dad. I love him. Joel stood up, pacing. I raised you to be a man, Dean. This isn't what I taught you. The words cut deep. I tried to speak, but Joel raised his hand. Alex, you've been like a son to me. How could you do this? The betrayal in his voice shattered something inside me. Dean defended us passionately, but Joel walked out, slamming the door. That night, Dean stayed with me, crying for the father who had always been his rock. The fallout spread fast. Joel stopped speaking to Dean. My own family heard through the grapevine, and my dad left a voicemail full of confusion and anger. At work, the whispers turned to stares. One afternoon, my boss called me in. We need to talk about your future here, Alex. I resigned the same day, choosing peace over paychecks. Dean faced similar pressure and took a leave of absence. The lowest point came when Dean pulled away. Maybe we need space, he said one rainy evening, voice hollow. I can't lose my dad forever. I begged him to fight, but he left anyway. For 2 weeks, I barely slept, replaying every moment, wondering if my decision by the fence had destroyed us both. I drove past their house one night and saw Joel alone fixing a loose board on the fence again. The sight broke me. Then the sacrifice. I packed a bag and drove to a friend's cabin up north for a month. I needed to give Dean room to decide without me as the reason for his pain. The isolation forced me to face my own truths. I wrote letters I never sent, pouring out my love and my fears. The separation hurt, but it also clarified everything. I loved Dean, not just the idea of him, but the man who laughed at my bad jokes and held me through storms. One cold morning my phone rang. Dean's voice cracked with emotion. I can't do this without you, Alex. I told Dad I'm not choosing between you and him. I want both. We talked for hours. He had confronted Joel again, this time calmer, explaining how his love for me made him a better man. Joel hadn't accepted it fully, but he hadn't slammed the door either. The betrayal, the separation, the pain had nearly broken us, but they also forged something unbreakable. Dean drove up to the cabin the next weekend. When he stepped out of the car, the winter sun caught his face, and I knew we had survived. We spent the days talking, walking through snow-covered woods, and rebuilding what the crisis had cracked. He told me how Joel had started asking small questions, not angry ones, just curious. He said he doesn't understand, but he doesn't want to lose me either. The words gave us hope. Back in Chicago, we faced the world together openly. Friends who mattered stayed. Some faded, but the ones who remained became family. I found a new job at a smaller firm where my boss actually celebrated diversity. Dean returned to work stronger, more authentic. We moved in together, a small apartment with a tiny balcony overlooking the city. Every morning I woke to his smile and remembered the fence that started it all. Joel came around slowly. One Sunday he invited us both for dinner. The table was the same, but the atmosphere had changed. He didn't hug me yet, but he shook my hand and said, "Take care of my son Alex." It wasn't full acceptance, but it was a beginning. We sat together talking about ordinary things, and for the first time the silence wasn't heavy. Months later, on a warm spring day, we returned to that backyard. Joel asked us to help paint the fence, the one we had repaired together. As we worked side by side, laughing and sharing stories, I felt the full circle. The boy who had hidden his truth had become a man who lived it. Dean glanced at me over the paintbrush, eyes full of love and pride. We had grown through the conflicts, the misunderstandings, the sacrifices. We had chosen each other every single time. Our journey wasn't perfect. Society still threw obstacles, but we faced them together. The internal storms had passed, leaving clarity. Loving Dean had forced me to become the best version of myself, honest, brave, compassionate. And he had found the same strength in me. Looking back at that ordinary Saturday when I decided to stay and confess, I know it was the turning point. The fence job was never just about wood and nails. It was about mending what was broken inside us all. True or false? A single decision to follow your heart in the face of fear and judgment will always lead to deeper self-understanding and stronger relationships, even when the path is painful.